Welcome to the Data Central Inventory Procedures training program. Please note that due to the configurability of Data Central, some activities shown in this document may appear or be named differently in your database. Also, please note that the process outlined in today's session are simply recommendations and may be implemented differently in your restaurants. So, inventory is to be counted using a handheld device, and there is also a paper backup process that you will be shown today as well. The handheld device that you guys will be using looks similar to the one that you see on the screen. Everybody has a DC inventory application on their handheld device. When you navigate to that inventory app and you select it, it will take you to the DC inventory screen. Depending on if you're performing a daily or a weekly count, it will pull up the locations that you have set up in your master count template based off of what items need to be counted on that day. For daily, it will only pull up those items that have been selected for daily inventory, and on end of week, for your Sunday date count, it will pull up your entire location list with all items available for inventory. As you view the inventory application on the tablet, you'll notice that on the top left, it will show you that you are in the proper restaurant as you're reviewing, as well as the date that you're performing inventory on. All inventory needs to make sure that it is performed on the date in which the inventory is ending, meaning that inventory is performed on the end of business day date. So if you perform it at night, you would set it for the same day. Or if you perform the inventory the next morning, you would need to set the date for the previous day. To the right, you will notice that you have three icons. The search icon will not be used in your regular inventory process. The synchronization icon is used in order to synchronize your counts once you have finalized your inventory count for each location. And then you have a additional ellipses that has about and settings. When you access the settings of your inventory template, it will bring up the connection settings that will show you that you are connected to the correct username and password account. You will notice that there is a web service where it says that the https://rmhs.rmdatacentral.com/web1240/ is the web service account that you need to be connected to. Under the service name, it is dc_inventory.asmx. And under the username, you would enter in your login credentials and your password credentials that you use to log into the DC client. Once you have set up your information, you can test the credentials and save to ensure that you have the proper login credentials, and you'll receive a green message down at the bottom that says setup credentials are valid. Please note you do not need to set up your tablet. It has already been set up for you. This is just a note in case you would ever have to go in and make an adjustment for any reason. There is additional documentation that I will send over on the view options, external devices, and miscellaneous. If you ever need support, feel free to contact your administrator on setting up the credentials. In order to navigate back to the inventory screen, you would simply select the inventory tab up here, and it will take you back to the main inventory screen. Prior to beginning the inventory process, one of the most important things you need to note is that you have an internet connection and that you are connected online to the internet. The best way to perform this connection check is to navigate to the home screen, and you will have a quick support button that exists here. By selecting this quick support button, it will generate a number for you. So my recommendation is, prior to performing inventory, click on quick support and ensure that you have an internet connection. If it does not generate a number in the blank white space for you, you do not have a connection. The best way to get a connection is to either select the internet browser button or the Chrome browser button. And then once you've selected one of those two, you're going to navigate to the screen and type in google.com. Select go, and then if you do not have a connection, it will take you to your Skyline Connect screen where you would have the red Connect button. Once you've ensured you had a connection, then you can navigate back to your DC inventory screen and you can begin your inventory counts. Your inventory counts will appear as you have set up your count location. We're going to review a daily count sheet, which will just have the core items to be counted. In order to begin your counts, you'll simply select the first location that you'd like to start at. You'll click on that location and it will bring up the items that are in that particular location for you to perform inventory on. You'll notice that the first item I have is cheese, and it's showing me that I need to count my bags of cheese. So I would look at my racks and say that I have 40 bags per rack and I've got 7 racks. I could take 40 times 7, and I have performed my inventory counts for my bags of cheese. Then I can move to the next location. I have 2 ways to move to the next location. I can select the location area and it will bring a drop down, and then I can select the next location I'd like to go to, or I can hit this green go arrow over here and it will take me back to the main screen, where then I have the ability to synchronize my data with the server or move on to the next count location. As I move into the next count location, it will bring up the additional items that are in that location. You'll notice that the item it brings up is my raw cubes of chili, and it wants me to count how many fresh cubes I have. So if I have 5 cubes, I'd enter in 5 and then hit next, and then navigate to the next location. The next location, as you can see, I have multiple items to count in this location. And in these items, I have multiple ways to count them. So the first item I have is my cheese, and I have the option to count it by whole or by pound. When you set up the defaults in your purchase items and your count template, it told it where to default to first, if it was to pound or to block. As you noticed when we navigated to the screen, it was on pound. And again, please visit the purchase items, documentation, and video to learn how to manage this. If I have 5 blocks of cheese, I would enter 5 blocks of cheese. And then if I had an additional pounds, I would enter my 4.2 pounds of cheese. Then I can select next, and it will take me to the next item, which I have those same counting measures available here. On to the next item, and you'll notice that at this point I'm looking at my extreme cheese, which is my shredded cheese, and I'm counting this by how many pounds that I have. I can add tubs if I have multiple tubs of cheese. If I make a mistake and enter the wrong number, I can simply hit the backspace button, enter in the correct number, and then hit equals. Please also note that as I count each item, there is a check mark letting me know that that item has been counted. Also note that the items that have been counted are a lighter shade of lettering, and the items that still need to be counted are a darker shade of lettering. And the item that I am currently on is highlighted in blue. Also note, when I have multiple options of how to count an item, the item and the measure of which I am counting is highlighted in blue. I can toggle back and forth between these, and that's how I know which one I'm currently on. I can enter decimals if I wanted to and say that I had half of a bag or a quarter of a bag, so that way I can be specific on my counts. Also note that on the main location screen, as you complete each location, those items that still need to be counted are a darker color and will tell you how many items are left. Those items that have been colored are grayed out with a check mark. You can go back into these items and re-enter your counts as many times as you need to. Once I have completed my inventory counts, I can perform a synchronization, which will then send those counts to my Data Central client. If I were to enter into my Data Central client and I were to review my actual counts for this particular date, you'll notice that there are no counts entered into Data Central yet. And all locations will show up as blank and not counted. I know this because there are no numbers in the quantity columns, and specifically there is a red dot next to the item indicating that that item has not yet been counted for each one of my locations. When inventory counts are performed, all items must be counted, and there must be a number entered in for every line. You do not have to have a number for every column, but you do have to have at least one number for every line that exists in Data Central in order for you to be able to save and approve your counts. When I navigate back to my tablet and I press the synchronization button, it is going to send my counts back to Data Central. You'll notice that there was a green mark down here that said synchronization was successful. And then it goes back to the count screen for you to continue your counts and to count the rest of the areas. As I navigate into my Data Central client and then navigate to that particular date, you will notice that the counts I entered in to Data Central now appear in each location. I also have the ability to manually enter in my counts right into the client by clicking on the location item line and quantity and entering in a number. I also have the ability to put in multiple numbers. So for example, for these buns, it shows me that the quantity of how these buns are counted when I select this particular whole count measure. By clicking in here, I can see up here that these should be counted by the rack. So if I have 15 racks of buns, I can enter in 15. I also have the ability under the partial quantity, when I look up here under the partial measure, to see that these should be entered in as bags or dozen. So I have the ability to say I had 10 dozen. If there is no measure to be counted in the quantity, it will show you that please select an enabled quantity column, and it's asking you to select one of the columns that is enabled. Also, please note that when you set up your count template, you set up a summary measure, a summary quantity, and what happens is it adds all of your quantities together and converts it into this summary measure to give you the total quantity. So for example, on my buns, by saying that I had 15 racks plus 10 dozen, it converted those into dozen and lets me know that I have 130 dozen buns. For the best way to review your counts, once they've been entered into the tablet or in manually, you will want to put your summary counts column in front of the whole counts so you can quickly navigate and see that of buns, you have 130 total dozen. Then you can see how you counted those if you ever needed to make an adjustment. You can count your final location. And again, you have the ability to either use the tablet for that final location, or you can enter it into the Data Central client by entering in numbers and knowing that this whole counts column is measured by the bags. My whole counts column for my hot dogs are measured by the bags. And I also have an each option, which then converts and tells me total bags of hot dogs. I have 1.78 bags. And then finally, my cheese. If you do not have an item or any of the product for that particular line, you can simply enter in a 0. Once you have completed all of the counts for all locations, you can navigate to the Task tab and select the Validate button. By validating your counts, it will take you to the final screen where you then have the ability to approve your counts. When you select the Approval button, it will ask you if you're sure you want to approve this inventory. You will either select yes or no. Once you have approved your inventory, it will take you back to the Start screen. If you need to make an adjustment to your inventory after you have already approved it, you can navigate back to the Task tab, go back into that date that you need to adjust, and select Next. Simply unapprove your counts and enter in the correct number. Select Validate, and then reapprove your counts. If for some reason you would need to perform a manual count, you do have the ability to print a blank count report. By navigating into the Counts activity, you can select Task, Reports, and then select the Inventory Count worksheet. You would select that day's date and select to print empty. View Report, and it will create a blank count worksheet for you that will show you the location, with the ways that that particular item was set up to be counted in your count template. You can then print this report and perform a manual inventory if your internet connection is not working. Now that we've spent time reviewing the how to perform the inventory with the mobile application or through the manual counts desktop application, I will review the daily and weekly inventory procedures. On a daily basis, after the close of business, you should perform a key item daily inventory count using your tablet. You will perform this just as you were shown on how to perform inventory with your tablet. Once you have completed your inventory with your tablet and you have synchronized your counts, you will navigate to your Data Central client, access your daily activities, and navigate to the Daily Inventory Key Item Counts activity. It will take you through a guided path to ensure that you perform all of the needed steps to make sure your inventory was properly counted. You will navigate to the first step, which is to review and approve your counts. These are the counts that you entered into your tablet and synchronized. If you are performing this on the same day, you will select that day's date. If you are reviewing the previous evening's date, you will want to select the previous day's date, navigate to Task, and select Next. It is imperative that after you perform your inventory counts that you come in and you review your counts for accuracy. Once you have entered in, you will then review line by line that your actual counts are accurate. You will review and make sure that the summary quantity is the right amount for each line item. If you find a mistake, you can correct that mistake in your whole, partial, or each count and enter in the correct counts. You will want to review every line item for every location. This will be approximately about a 2-minute process. Once you have reviewed all of your line items and locations, you will then navigate to Task and select Next. Once you have hit the inventory value validation screen, you will approve your counts. Then you can move to the next activity, which is reviewing the KPIs or your key performance indicators. By clicking on this, it will generate a target item use versus actual item use report for that day, for the previous day's business. This report will show you what the target item, number of items that should have been used for that particular line item and what was actually used, along with the variance and the recorded waste. You will note that, for example, on this particular report, for buns, according to the sales in the POS system, there should have been a use of 442 buns, and there was actually a use of 444 buns. So there was a variance of 2 buns. It will give you that information for every line item that you count on a daily basis. If you find something that does not look accurate on this report, you can review and navigate back into your counts by clicking back to number 1 and reviewing to make sure that your ending counts are accurate. If you'd like to look at the detail of what generated that report, you can navigate to step number 3, which will give you the cost of goods sold report, and navigate to those particular items. and it will show you that your beginning inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory, and that will show you what the actual usage was. You also have the ability on a daily basis to look into specific items by navigating to report number 4 if you'd like to review to understand what items were sold. You can select a particular item, select a particular date range, and then select View Report. And it will show you the total number of items that were sold and the total number of items that were actually used, as well as what that particular item sales were and how that item was utilized in a recipe and in how it was sold and what the quantity of that particular item was. The daily inventory counts and the weekly inventory counts are performed through the same process. The only difference is it's a full inventory for weekly. To navigate to your weekly end of week Monday morning inventory counts, you navigate to the tablet, and you would then select a Sunday date. You're selecting a Sunday date because Sunday is the end of business for us. You'll notice that while the dailies only show the locations for daily counts and only those items in those locations for daily counts, the weekly inventory counts shows all locations along with all items that you have created within those locations. You can start at the beginning or any location that you'd like. Select that particular location and it will bring up all items in that location as well as all measures of those items that can be counted. Once you have performed your end of week inventory counts, you'll navigate into your DC client, navigate to the Monday morning administration, and start at number 1, inventory procedures. You will note that there are certain required steps that must take place for your weekly, but then the process looks exactly the same as the daily moving forward, except for the counts are more. For questions on weekly inventory, please visit the weekly inventory documentation in the setup folder. This concludes the daily and weekly inventory procedures training session.